Hello everyone, hope you all are doing very well. So today's topic is poetic devices. Now you must have heard about poem, you must have heard about poet, but you haven't heard about the poetic devices. Now these are not instruments, these are certain words, sounds or phrases that describes a poem or a poet uses in his or her poem to enhance the meaning of their poem. So, as it says, the term poetic device refers to anything used by a poet, including sounds, shapes, rhythms, phrases, and words to enhance the literal meaning of their poem. So, now we will talk about different types of poetic devices. Here are some devices like metaphor, simile, personification, oxymoron, imagery, hyperbole, alliteration, and paradox. And there are few more, so let's talk about these one by one. Now, what is a simile? A type of figurative language that compares two different things using the word like or as. Now, just concentrate here. How can we identify similes in a poem? So wherever we see like and as, and wherever we see the comparison using like and as, we can consider those as similes. For example, they fought like cats and dogs. So here you can see the use of term like. So basically we are comparing somebody's fight with cats and dogs. I ran like the wind. Now I know that nobody can run like a wind, but we are just comparing someone is as fast as wind. So we have used like term to compare somebody's running with the wind. Now you are as brave as a lion. Now here again we are using the term as to compare someone or to compare the strength of someone as brave as a lion. Now the house is as clean as a whistle. Now here we are comparing the house with a whistle. So as clean as a whistle. Now let's talk about some more examples of similes. As snow or as white as snow. So we are comparing somebody's complexion with snow. As fat as pig. So somebody who is very fat, we can compare him or her as a pig. Swim like a fish. If somebody swims like or if somebody swims very well, so we can compare his or her swimming with a fish. Now, as strong as an ox, as busy as a bee, life is like a dream. So we are comparing life with a dream. As cold as ice. Now ice is very cold. So we are just comparing the coldness with ice. As quiet as a mouse. So in all the examples you can see that we have used either a like or we have used as. So these two terms are very important for comparison whenever we are using similes. Now let's talk about the other poetic device, which is metaphor. Now metaphor is something similar to simile, but the only difference is we don't use like or as for comparison here. But we compare two things here just like simile, but without the use of like or as. Now a comparison is in which one thing is said to be another. For example, my mom is a teddy bear. So I'm comparing my mother with a teddy bear. She is soft as teddy bear. So if I can say she is soft as teddy bear, then it would be a simile because I would be using as term. But here I'm not using like nor I'm using as to compare my mother with a teddy bear. So that's why this is a metaphor. Again, we are comparing one thing with another without the use of like or as. Now let's talk about some example of metaphor. As you can see here, the book was a passport to adventure. Now here the book is compared with adventure. You are what you eat. So whenever we eat, much or we eat less, so it reflects in our body. So if you eat more, you will become fat, and if you eat less, you will become thin. So whatever we eat, that reflects in our body. So we can say you are what you eat. Again, we are comparing Okay, so here her hair was silk. Now we are comparing someone's hair silk, so it must be as silky as a silk, but here we are not using as in like, that's why it's a metaphor. Now let's talk about the other poetic device, which is alliteration. Now, alliteration is when two or more words begin with the same sound. Now, you can see some examples here. Lily received fancy flowers. Now, in these, you can see fancy and flowers, they begin with some words which sound similar. Fancy and flower, fur, right? Now, similarly, green grass grew on the sidewalks. Now, here, green grass grew. So all are having similar sound. So here two or more words that begin with the same sound, we can consider them alliteration. Let's talk about some more examples of alliteration. The sly snake slithers slowly in the sand. So you can see the use of S is repeated here with the same sound. Peter Piper picked a peck of pepper. So again, the sound of P is repeating here. She sells seashells by the seashore. Here we are repeating the sound of S. I bought a bag of big bell peppers. Here we are repeating the sound of B. So all whenever we have two or more sounds or two or more words which starts with similar sound, we can consider them alliteration in our poem. Now we have another poetic device called repetition. Here we will see the repeated words or phrases. Now see, repetition is a literacy device that repeats the same words or phrases multiple times. For example, I gaze upon the sky, I gaze at the clouds so high. So here in both the examples, you can see I gaze and I gaze is being repeated two times. So that's why we can say this is the use of repetition. Again, Tom sneezed and sneezed and sneezed. So we are saying that sneezed is repeated three times. So this is again the example of repetition. I love bugs, small bugs, big bugs, and very big bugs. So bugs is being repeated multiple times. So here again we are using repetition. Now the other poetic device is personification. Now what do you mean by personification? It is a poetic device in which inanimate objects such as plants or lifeless creatures are given human characteristics. Now you can see in this example, the sun is smiling at us. Sun is being considered as a lifeless creature, or we can say inanimate object. So we are considering, or we have been giving him or giving sun the human characteristic smile. So sun is smiling. So have you ever seen sun smiling? No. So we are just using what? We are using personification here. So let's talk about some more examples of personification. The stars winked at me. Again, we are giving the human quality of winking an eye. So stars never winks, but we are again using personification in this example. The stars winked at me. So this is again the use of personification. Now the other poetic device is hyperbole, as the name itself says hyper. It means it is a major exaggeration or overstatement. So whenever we emphasize or we exaggerate or we do overstatement, that can be considered as a use of hyperbole. Authors use this figure of speech to emphasize a point or add humor. For example, I nearly died laughing. So have you ever heard of somebody died of laughing? No. So again, here again we are using or we are just hypering the statement by just exaggerating that I nearly died of laughing. Some more examples of hyperbole. The king's nose was 3 feet long. Have you ever seen somebody's nose this much long? No. Again, we are exaggerating. My dad can lift over 2 tons. That's a huge amount of load, right? So which your dad or which anybody's dad cannot lift. But again, we are using overstatement here. That food was so hot, my ears were smoking. Whenever we eat something spicy or some hot thing, so we consider like ear burns or ear, smoke comes out of it. So again, the statement is exaggeration or we are just overdoing it. That boy runs faster than a car. Have you ever seen the fastest athlete? Even the Bolt cannot run faster than a car. So we are again doing exaggeration in the sentence. I am so tired I could sleep a year. Can anybody sleep a year? Not even a day or two, right? So again, this statement is a use of hyperbole. I am 20 feet tall this month. Can anybody grow such tall in a month? No. Again, this is a use of overstatement or exaggeration. I must have walked 100 miles. Nobody can walk this much distance, right? 100 miles is a huge distance. He cried so long that he made a lake. Nobody can cry that much, not even a bucket can fill. So, how can we make a lake, right? So, again, use of exaggeration. I am so hungry I could eat a horse. Can anybody be that hungry that he or she could eat a horse? No, not yet. I haven't heard about it. So this is again a sentence of exaggeration. You have a million toys at your house. Everybody can have toys, but not a million. It requires a lot of space to accommodate. So this is again a use of hyperbole. Now let's talk about the other poetic device. What is an oxymoron? A literary device combining two contradictory words to create a new figure of speech, like deafening silence. Now, here you can see that two words must be contradicting each other, they must be the opposite of each other. So let's talk about some examples here because deaf itself says which somebody who cannot hear. So that is equivalent to silence. So both the terms are contradictory, right? Doing nothing. So you're doing as well as nothing. So this is the contradictory use of terms. Daydreams, random pattern, act naturally, small crowd. Crowd is supposed to be a big actually. So small is contradictory term for crowd. Dress, shirt, new classic, almost limitless, pretty, bad. So if someone is pretty, how can that be bad? Again, these two terms are contradictory or opposite of each other. Going nowhere, so you're going as well as nowhere. Feeling numb, genuine imitation, all alone. So if you're alone, then why there is an all? Again, the terms are contradictory. Fresh, frozen. So if something is frozen, that has been, kept for many days, but fresh is freshly cut. Like, so again, these two terms are contradictory. Climb down, minor miracle, crash landing, new used car, awfully nice, inside out. So all these terms are oxymoron. Now paradox literary definition. Now what is a paradox? Let's talk about this literary or this poetic device. A paradox is a self-contradictory statement that highlights two conflicting ideas. So let's talk about the conflicting ideas. What are they? What is a logical paradox? A logical paradox is a statement that is so self-contradictory that it cannot be true or false. So if something is true, it is actually false. If something is, false, it is actually true. So in other words, if the statement is true, it's false, but if it's false, it's true. So let's hear out some examples of paradox, right? So what is peace? What itself? cannot be a piece, but here in this sentence it has been shown as a true statement, but it is actually not true, it is false. Freedom is slavery, so how can a slave be free, right? So this is again, this looks like true, but this is false. A freedom cannot be a slavery. Ignorance is strength. If you are ignoring someone, how can it be a strength? So again, this is contradictory statement. My weakness is my strength. A weakness can never be strength. So here we are just confusing ourselves. So you must have heard about whether hen comes first or egg comes first. So again, such kind of contradictory statement which confuses ourselves or which confuses itself, that appears or that are called as paradox. Now the other poetic device is imagery, is descriptive language that appeals to five senses: eyes to see, tongue to taste, nose to smell, ear to hear, and skin to touch. So all these emotions and feelings are felt. Here are some different types of imagery devices like visual imagery. It deals with your sight. Any kind of graphics, visual scenes, pictures, or the scene of sight can be termed as visual imagery. For example, it was dark and dim in the forest. So it is something visual, or it is something sense of sight. So we can consider this example as visual imagery. Auditory imagery, as the term auditory is related to hearing or to something, a sense of hearing. So sounds, noises, music, or the sense of hearing comes under this. For example, the children were screaming and shouting in the fields. So we can hear the children screaming and shouting with our ear. So it pertains to your auditory imagery. Now the third type of imagery is olfactory imagery, like odor, sense, or the sense of smell. So it is reflected with the sense of smell. So for example, he whiffed the aroma of brewed coffee. So we can smell the aroma. So this is an olfactory imagery. Gustatory imagery, flavors or the sense of taste. The fresh and juicy orange is very cold and sweet. Again, so sense of taste is, depicting in this example. Next imagery type is your tactile imagery, physical textures or the sense of touch. So it pertains to that. The girl ran her hands on a soft satin fabric. Now this is something we can feel by touching. So these are your imagery devices. So I hope students you are all well prepared about your poetic devices. Thank you for watching. Have a good day. Bye bye.